This case study, they pulled just, I think he pulled about 1,000 people. Okay, and out of 1,000 people, they said that they only trust 30% of the people that they meet. Okay, so basically, people in this world do not trust people, right? Okay, so 30% of the people, if you think about it, okay, everybody that you run into probably only trust maybe 3 out of 10 of them. But in that same poll, the same group of people, when asked, now think of your friends, okay? And they only trust their friends 70% of the time, okay? So there's still a big gap in there. So people that they know, people that they love, people that, that they know well, they still only trust these people 70% of the time. Okay, put that in perspective. In that same study, they said that I think only 31% of the time they trust like the news. They trust what they read on the internet because it's not filtered, if you will. They trust that 41% of the time. So where I'm going with all this is, how do we build trust? Okay? How do we build trust in a way that can be practiced? Who in here has watched a great speaker? You go to church, you watch a speaker online, you go to a seminar, and you see a speaker that tells a great story, right? You trust that person more than if they're up here just presenting facts. Okay? Generally, that's the case. Okay? And I felt for a long, long time that that was just a talent that people had. You were born with that gift of gab. You just had this ability to just tell great stories. I've got a good friendship that he just tells great stories. He's funny to listen to, and you just like this guy within 10 minutes of meeting him. Okay, just a cool guy. He's always telling great stories. He's the life of the party. He's a cool guy to be around. But at the end of the day, he's always telling these really cool stories, so you get to know him and you feel like you've known him forever within about 5-10 minutes of having a conversation with him. And that's something that this book, again, New Sales Simplified by Mike Weinberg, it's a phenomenal book. Okay? And it's a skill. It's something that can be learned. Okay? You can learn how to tell stories. So I'm going to go through today and share some examples, but more than anything, I don't want to sit up here and talk about it. I want to pull out some stories. Like I mentioned in the email, okay, we're 6 months into the year right now. Okay, we've all had some great wins, some great losses this year. We've had things that we've learned while dealing with people on the phone, while dealing with real estate transactions. I want to hear your stories so we can steal those stories, we can share one another's stories, and use those when we're talking to people. Okay, as an example, how did you deal with an appraisal? How can you steal somebody else's story to share with another client, perhaps, about how you dealt with an appraisal challenge? Or you did, I was just talking to Scott Reed a minute ago, and he was telling me that, he's got this really challenging buyer right now that is, he put a new AC unit in his house right before he sold it, and he bought a flip, and he's completely irate that this person that flipped the house didn't put a new AC in, just completely mismanaged expectations. Okay, so how is he dealing with that? So we can share these stories with one another, so that way we can learn from one another, we can grow together. Okay, so a couple things I want to hit on here real quick is, what's this look like? Okay, why do we need to tell stories? Okay, so real quick, stories are going to capture the attention of people and more quickly build a relationship. Okay, it's by telling a story, from my experience, and Evan, you've been working really, really hard on this. I'm going to call on you, and Luke, you have too, but share with me real quick how maybe your conversations on the phone have changed since you've begun sharing stories about working maybe with a first-time buyer or a move-up, move-down buyer. How has that shifted the dynamic of those conversations? If you have anything to share there.
Yeah, it's tenfold from what it's been since I first started.
How so? How so, though? How has it really shifted that conversation?
Because I never had experience with it, and I guess just going through it and realizing it and getting the confidence in my voice to actually spit it out like I've done it,
Okay.
Just makes it feel 10 times better than when I was just
Right. Okay. Luke, how about you, man? Because you're out there running appointments on top of that. How have sharing third-party stories with, people you're working with now from a past experience, how has that shifted any conversations or helped on appointments, if you don't mind running from me a little bit?
Well, it's just made it's easier to get the conversation going for longer, first of all. Definitely easier to build the connection, and usually ends up leading to getting a bit more rapport on the phone, which just leads to a stronger appointment in the end. So.
Absolutely. Hey, telling stories, it quickly connects with people's, the mechanism in their brain, and I have no idea what that mechanism is, but you're hitting on people's emotions. You're not only just sharing intellect with people, you're not just sharing knowledge, but you're connecting with their emotions. And we're all emotional people, and when we buy something, we buy things for emotional reasons, and we go home later and justify it intellectually down the road. So if we want to quickly build this bridge from talking to a stranger to making them a friend, somebody that they know that they're beginning to trust, the story is the shortest route to do that. Because you get to know about people's experiences, you get to know about what they're all about. Okay, so there's definitely a way to do that, and it makes you more memorable. Okay, and that's the goal with this first phone call, is simply to build a relationship and get this person to hang up from the phone and say, boy, I don't know what it was, but there was something about Luke, he gets me. Okay, and then they're not shopping for real estate agents anymore. I met with Toby, and man, I don't know what it is, but Toby completely gets me. She knows who I am, she knows what I'm all about. So when the next real estate agent calls, because they're still going on Zillow looking at houses, when the next agent calls, like, no, we're covered. That's what storytelling enables us to do, to quickly build that bridge, to form a solid bond and a relationship with these people so they quit shopping around. Okay? So let me ask real quick, who has had an event? Okay, I've got $100 here today. Okay, who has had a crazy situation this year that, you know what, maybe it was an inspection, maybe it was an appraisal, maybe it was a phone call that you took. Who's had a situation this year where, something just went completely awry, and then what did you learn from that? Anybody? Yes, sir.
I had a situation where I was, it was about a month ago or so. I was a listing agent on the deal. Client gone through the inspection response. They had, agreed to do certain items. Single mother type deal, and in the end, we're about a week away from closing, and she called me and said, "Hey, I'm not even packed. I need you to help me find someone to help me get packed and moved out in the next week." So, kind of went through all that, but in the end, she ended up, we had to push the closing back a couple days. But at the same time, when we meet to do the final walkthrough of the home, client, while she had sent me handyman receipts that I had sent over to the client, a couple of repairs weren't completed. And I think in the end, I just really learned that, sometimes trust but verify, I guess, in the end. So when it came time, went through a bunch of post-closing issues that I think in the end, I think I kind of learned something from that.
So what's your takeaway? How do you take that experience and share that with somebody else? The next person, next time you have a listing or you have a buyer, to give them peace of mind that things are going to be okay. Because possession after closing sucks. Joy and I are dealing with one right now where they did a final walkthrough. We're closing tomorrow. We're closing this afternoon. But this house keeps getting worse and worse and worse as they move out. So the buyers have zero confidence that this house is going to be turned over in a great manner. So how do you take that example and give maybe a buyer peace of mind that in a situation like this, they're not going to have post-closing challenges like this? What would you take away from that?
Well, I think it would be, again, kind of sharing that story and maybe sharing it more of, hey, in the past, maybe if you haven't had an experienced agent, these are some pitfalls that you may encounter. These are some steps that we're going to take to make sure that you don't encounter some of these problems. And at the same time, if you do, then maybe correlating that story to, hey, this has happened before, this is how we dealt with it. In the end, everybody's happy and we can move on. And this isn't something that is end of the world.
I think that's key. Okay, outside of price, possession is the most negotiated dynamic in a purchase agreement. Anybody ever have a buyer where they write an offer, they want possession at closing, and then the seller comes back and says we want possession for a week later, and oh, by the way, we've got 3 other offers, so kind of take it or leave it. Anybody ever had a buyer with concerns like that? I do frequently. Okay, that's a huge, huge concern that people have, because outside of suing somebody in court, you don't have a whole lot of protection in an event like that. So giving a buyer peace of mind for how you've been in, I just went through this with another client, and here's how we handled that situation, to give them peace of mind that, I've been down this path before, I've traveled this road, and here's how we handled it. Here's how I'm gonna be of service to make sure this goes off without a hitch. So that way they do have the peace of mind and the confidence in you because you've handled this situation before. That's a great example. Great example, thank you. Who else? Toby, please.
I recently had one, and it was great house, small little ranch, first time home buyer, and after the inspection, the roof came back poor, and so the owner was only willing to give like probably 75% of the cost of the roof. Well, we had put in like an offer of 176, and we fully expected them to counter. It was first day on market, and we were gonna go like our max was 180, 182. Like we already knew that. They accepted it. So I was like, you were willing to pay more for this house before, so you're still getting a great house. And so it was a lot kind of talking her through it of kind of like, it's not a who wins here, let's let everybody win. And so by talking to her, talking to the other agent, and talking to the lender, we were able to just do an amendment to the contract. And so what we did is we amended the price, we raised it like $2,500, and so then she had the money to put towards the roof, and then the seller was gonna write a larger check. So he was getting more for the house. It was a way of her paying for part of that roof without having to do it out of
Without having to write a
pocket.
check.
So like, everybody won, everybody was happy, and so, but it was a lot of conversation between everybody, and not, you know, the lender, the other agent. You're getting a great house and the appraisal came back, I think, at 181, and we paid 176, and she's gonna have a new roof, so it's gonna appraise for even more now, so.
So was the hardest part of that story, because I can completely track with you there, I've been down that path myself, so was the hardest part of that story, I mean, dealing with the emotional side of this where, you know, they're not willing to do what I want to do, like you said, you know, making it feel like I'm winning in this situation. How did you tie it back and keep them, you know, remind them that, you know, you love this house so much that you're willing to pay more than asking price for it? How did you work through that? Because I think that is one of the biggest things that we have to do oftentimes as real estate agents is when stuff goes awry with inspections. Inspections are such a nightmare to deal with sometimes. And people get into that mindset, I feel, of, you know what, I have to win. If I don't get everything I want, if I don't get these screens replaced, I want out of this deal. So how did you do that? Because I think that's one of the most important dynamics of working through inspections and keeping buyers engaged as the original reasons why they wanted the house. Walk us through that if you don't mind.
I told her about another client that I was working with at the same time who,
So you did exactly what we're talking about here. You shared a third-party story. You shared a story about somebody else that went through this exact same experience. I love what you did there with showing her what her other options would be if you blow this thing up, and kind of helped her realize how crazy this thought process really is.
And in the end, her mom was thrilled.
Awesome.
So
Because at the end of the day, it's her mom's goal that her daughter wins or her daughter's happy. Right? That's awesome. Well done. That's a really, really good story. Jay, please.
Well, dealing with out-of-town investors,
Okay. I'm not
That don't know the area at all.
Enlighten me, please.
and Mona and I are actually dealing with this guy. They're from Chicago, and I don't know the area that well. And we found the perfect property for them in Fishers. Come to find out, it was going through short sale proceedings and whatnot. And you know, with that, it's about setting that expectation of who has it, what's going on. You know, who can. Do we have the right person involved here to get the deal done sooner than later? The owner is the agent. Okay, so we had to really install the trust in this guy and this investor, saying this is the best plan right here. You can go anywhere on the north side, but we found it for you. Look at these comps. Here's what we're going to get. You know, the guy wanted to put the work into it, no problem at all, right? We did not close on the day we were supposed to close because it was with the attorneys still and in the courts, and the judge hadn't signed off on anything. So I took the investor myself, drove up to Noblesville with the investor, and we went right to the attorney's office. It's basically showing the cool confidence, I guess, with these guys and letting them know we know what we're doing. We've instilled the process to you. Here's what's going to happen in this, and here's what possibly could be pitfalls, just like someone said. And then we may not close, but it didn't close for another 30 days after that. They wanted to can the whole deal and go find some other properties. And Mona and I were like, no, this is the one. Trust me. Let's get it to closing and you'll see. And it is, and they got to closing, they're gonna make out like bandits on this once we turn around and sell it again. And I guess it's more or less, you know, having someone, even having that cool, calm confidence in the midst of turmoil,
Absolutely.
okay? And just knowing that you know what you're doing, there's a confidence in what we do as agents here. We know this market, we know what we're doing. And it's just, whether they get mad or pissed off or whatever, we can at least install that cool confidence in them saying, follow our lead, we know what we're doing. And that's what happened here, and they're gonna make out pretty well as a result of their patience along the way.
Absolutely. And I think as consumers, you know, I think we all go through this ourselves probably, if we're honest. In that, you know, when things go wrong, when there's a couple bumps in the road, perhaps a big bump like that in the road, you know, it's so easy just to take your ball and go home, right? It's so easy just to get mad, get frustrated, and say, yeah, you know, this is too hard, I don't want to do this anymore. So taking Jay's example there, dealing with the short sale, I know nobody in here wants to deal with a short sale, but when you're dealing with investors that aren't on a specific timeline, it's a great option for people. And so in this situation, now Jay's got a story where he can literally tell people about the challenges that they went through. When I was working with another investor, we all would like to work with investors that buy several homes with us a year. It's an awesome experience when you have people like that, right? I mean, Jay, but you've helped this person, a couple times now? Or?
This is the first time.
Okay, first time.
But once he gets his home fixed up, we at least have someone for a long time now, because he's stuck with it, he didn't jump ship. He's gonna make out like a bandit on this home in Fishers, and we're gonna be fine.
Now you've got examples to share with other people about when the tough gets going, how you took the lead. Like you said, you have the confidence, you took the lead, and now this guy trusts you implicitly, I would imagine, because you went as far as driving up to the lawyer's office to get this deal done. And that's what it takes sometimes. I think we have to share examples like that with people about how we've helped other people through a similar situation when the tough gets tough. And trust me, I don't know about y'all, but I've not had an easy real estate transaction. Actually, I'm lying. I had the most easy transaction I've ever had, but it was 1 in 70, I think. You know, they don't make those anymore, right? Every single transaction is going to have its set of challenges, some worse than others. And in a situation like that, now you've got a story to share with somebody that's going through maybe an inspection problem. Maybe you're dealing with another investor about the loopholes that this person went through, the timeline involved in doing so, and how you gave them the peace of mind and how much money they're going to ultimately make on this house. So is it worth waiting an extra month so that way in turn you can make 50 grand on this house? Probably.
Well, not quitting when the times get
That's
tough.
it.
I mean, just
I
don't
think
quit.
it's a
Don't show that you're a quitter. Don't,
Right.
just keep calm. Keep calm, man. Those shirts, keep calm.
That's awesome, man.
So,
That's awesome. Those are 3 really, really good examples. We've dealt with possession, we've dealt with an inspection challenge, we've dealt with, you know, an investor that's frustrated with the timeline. What else? What else has somebody experienced? Keith, please.
You know, anymore it seems like the people are sending you homes and saying,
Sure.
here, you know, and they're coming at you just rapid fire. One of the things that I always check first is flood zones. See if they're going to be in a floodplain. Don't trust the listing. The agent probably never checked. And, you know, sharing a story is, I just recently went under contract on a brand new home in a brand new subdivision, 2 spec homes, $175,000 ranch. It was smack dab in the middle of a flood zone. Girl went to get insurance, $12,000 a year. Amy was the lender on it. So the story to tell is, don't think that it can't be in a flood zone. Just check. It builds confidence with your clients that you're looking out for them from other ways. And just, no matter how much they love the home, just say, look, there's other homes that you don't have to deal with this problem. Let's find that home.
If you don't mind me asking, where was
I
that
know.
at?
Well, how can I
Yeah.
really not?
Tipton,
Okay.
Tipton, Indiana.
South
It's-
side?
It's on the west side of Tipton, just off, 28 there to the north. It's a brand new addition. The county person just stamped it. The guy's put in the roads, all in his mom's money. Built all the roads, plotted everything out. He built a 2-story with a basement.
Oh, my.
And this ranch with a crawl space.
Wow.
And when I called the realtor up there, a new realty, she was almost sick to her stomach.
Oh, yeah.
So
So,
is the whole subdivision in the floodplain?
yeah.
Good night.
Yep, whole thing.
So what happened, Keith?
Well, we got a release and moved on, of course, with my client. So simple enough, and, you know, we're working towards the next house. They're trying to get it rezoned from FEMA, and with the administration change right now, as I understand, nothing is going on at FEMA because they had a whole bunch of people move around within FEMA, and they're not dealing with anything right now. It's just totally disarray.
So how
So-
do you take that example? Because that is.
So, but you share that
Yeah.
with your clients that you're looking out for their behalf. Because I learned a lesson on one that I didn't because it was a brand new subdivision.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell them, I didn't look at this one.
'Cause it was
So I always
like
look at them for you.
I think that's huge. So in that example there, okay, how did you go above and beyond? Okay, we call this building gaps, helping people see your value when they don't know that we have value. Okay, so many people, okay, Joyce had like 2 or 3 people here in the last week we've had closings on that literally thought that, you know, we have the easiest job on the face of the earth, that just like HGTV going in, that we're completely overpaid, and then at the closing, they're telling you what?
Your job is so hard, I don't know how you do it.
Right.
You don't make enough money. I'm like, I know, right?
So
Because I dealt with you.
a complete paradigm shift from you're way overpaid, I can't believe you get paid this much to do this, to oh my gosh. So taking an example like that, building a gap, helping somebody see, you know, helping them discover something they don't know that they don't know, and how you were able to be of service and hedge off a problem. Because what happens if that's a regular resale house and that problem gets missed? Okay, now they're in it for their earnest money. Now they've got their inspection money in, and then where are they going to find on a resale transaction that a home's in a floodplain? They're in the appraisal, right? So now you've got a bunch of money invested in a situation that you stand to lose because you didn't do your due diligence and hedge that off. Okay, so that's awesome. That's a great example, Keith. It's the weirdest story I think I've probably heard in a while. It's nuts. It's nuts. What about something on the phone? Has anybody run into something on the phone, or, you know, give an example if you can about, you know, an appraisal, something on the phone that you've learned, anything like that that somebody can share with me about a lesson learned opportunity, a challenge that presented itself and what you learned from it. Marita, please.
One of my listings, the appraisal came in low. So I called the buyer's agent and said, okay, the appraisal came in at such and such. What's your buyer gonna do about it? So
It's an interesting approach. That's awesome.
So it worked out that the buyer and seller split the difference. It's typically always deducted from the seller's side, but I think, you know, when we're working, our attitude is really important. So if you've always got a positive attitude, it just helps,
Being solution oriented.
yeah, smooth everything down.
Absolutely. Because I think with appraisals right now, I went through one of these, Steve, we just went through a massive appraisal challenge. How did you keep everybody engaged? If you don't mind sharing that story, because you had an appraisal that was like 35 grand off, wasn't it, or 40?
Yeah, it was 35,000.
Okay, how did you keep everybody engaged in that situation? Because everybody gave a little to win, you know, to get this deal to closing. How did you keep the buyer engaged when he's buying a house that now all of a sudden is theoretically worth $30,000, $35,000 less than what he had agreed to buy it for? How'd you keep him engaged in that situation?
From a buyer standpoint, was a couple different ways. One thing we did was we sat down together, just said, hey, can we take 15 minutes and meet up? And
So
we
you
would,
did this face to face.
Yeah.
Were you representing the buyer or the seller?
I was the buyer.
Okay.
So we sat down and I said, you know, obviously when you have an appraisal come back $35,000 low, it doesn't only look bad on, you know, sell side, it looks bad on you.
Absolutely.
Because it looks like you gave them a poor investment. So, you know, we sat down and I said, I just want to show you how we came up with our pricing when we put the bid on this home. We went through the numbers together, showed them what we landed on, showed them how we did it. So they knew that the appraiser was just being an appraiser and not doing anybody any favors. But anyway, they saw what the home value was worth. So I went back to them and I kept in front of both of them. Guys, how long have we been at this? Oh, 2 or 3 months. How many homes did we look at together? Well, we looked at a bunch. How many did you fall in love with? Well, it was just this one. So we said, hey, if we had to go through 20 homes the first time to find the one that we loved, I mean, you're almost packed and out of your old home ready to go. are you prepared to go through 20 more, maybe another 2 months to hopefully find another one you love? Or they've agreed to come down and split the difference with us. Is it worth losing that much money? Now, this is a situation where it's not a first-time buyer. They have money. You know, they were comfortable with the pricing that we gave them. So just keeping in front of them, you know, what the impact would be, because the seller just wasn't in a place, and they shouldn't have been. As a seller, I would have said, hey, they don't want to just put it back on the market, we'll get a new appraisal and it'll be better. And it would have been fine. So keeping in front of them how important it was and how much they loved the home to begin with, we were able, both sides, to just meet halfway. They lost a little on the sale, we brought some on the buy. And it ended up being fine and everybody was happy and they loved the new house, so it worked out.
I hope you all took something away from that, because I just learned something there. How easy is it to do all this over the phone or do it through email? Again, we are working in a ridiculously emotionally charged business, where people do stuff that's completely illogical because they love something, right? So in this situation, I mean, truly, I've not done that. That's awesome that you literally sat down and you met him face to face and you took him back through the entire process. Okay, that's huge. That is absolutely powerful. Well done, dude. That is awesome. That you took the time to go through everything and remind him
It's a
and demonstrate
personality
your
thing
point.
too. He's analytical something. He goes through data and finds fraud and stuff like that. So he's the type of person that needs to be able to kind of be walked through the impact of everything. So every time we would have these phone conversations, they were fine, but it was so much back and forth that he couldn't wrap his mind around how he should bring more money. So just sitting down and breaking it out for him, he could see the data. As an analytical guy, it made sense to him.
That's well done, Matt. Going back to our Las Vegas managership, one of the things, again, just to really keep on the frame of emotion here real quick, he shared an email this past weekend with us, and I really took something away from it that again, hadn't really even considered. But, again, people, genuinely speaking, want to help people out. Okay? People want to appreciate, if this person living in their house loves this house, right? And we've all heard about writing a letter about how much it would mean to get in this house. But he shared something with us that I thought was amazing, and that is that what happens if the buyer, not you, but the buyer goes and knocks on the seller's door and introduces themselves, puts a face with what's on that contract right there, and just says, you know what, I know you've got a lot of options, but we love this, and this about your house. Here's how it's going to impact our lives. And can you put a face with that? Otherwise, you're just working from numbers, okay? How impactful that was for them out there, and they're doing that. Las Vegas is just as hot as what our real estate market is right now, and you have to go so far above and beyond to get their offer accepted. Another example of that, and he shared this in his email as well, and it reminded me of a deal Joy had, where the buyer noticed, this was on Peter Monica, I believe, wasn't it? No, the Brownsburg people. No, who was the? Anyway.
Just tell the story.
Doesn't matter. Getting caught up on the details here. But as I'm walking through the house with this buyer, he noticed that the seller's a veteran. Okay? And in this situation, okay, he's like, you know what? Is it Navy or Army? Doesn't matter. But they're Army brothers. Okay? And he notices this, and he asks that when we present this offer, in the same situations we all go through every day, house been on the market for a day, multiple offers, blah, blah, blah. He's like, let him know that I'm a veteran. Okay? And Chip shared this same story in the email. That is a band of brothers, okay? Not to, it's a great TV series, by the way, if you've not seen it, but that's what it is, though. Okay? These people want to help one another out, and that's why this lady accepted our offer, is because she wanted the home to go to a veteran. And our offer was not the highest offer.
I
But
almost didn't say it too.
No, I know.
Because I sent it over and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll add it, whatever. And I did, and then the listing agent called me right back and she's like, not only did he serve the husband, but he also died last year. And so he left her with 2 little babies, and she wants this home that they built to raise their kids to go to another veteran. So it was a good story.
mean, but those are the things that we so frequently overlook. I'll come right to you, that we overlook because we're so caught up in the transactional side of this, and we forget that we are dealing with people's lives and the emotion that goes with it. So again, what can you do to give yourself an edge? How can you share examples like this with other people, with your clients, about how it's worked for somebody else, just to give yourself an edge when you're writing an offer, please?
So this isn't my particular story, it's Evan's story, but my cousin happened to be the seller in this situation. It was, happened a couple months back, it was a multiple offer situation. There were, a ton of showings on this property in Plainfield. There was a lot of chatter in the town about it, and there was a couple that lived in the neighborhood a few houses away. So they sent a letter with their offer, and they had not actually seen the property, but they knew that it was in a highest and best situation with other offers. So they sent the offer, sent a letter saying, we have kids, we've seen this home, we've seen how you fixed it up, we longed for this home and we want to raise our kids there, yada, yada, yada. Well, my cousin, the seller, ends up accepting their offer. It wasn't even the highest offer, but she really liked, the story that they gave along with it. But again, it was a site, they'd seen the outside of the home, they hadn't been inside the home. This is an older home for sure. So then they go and have the inspection. And there really weren't any major defects. There were typical things that you would find, age appropriate in the home. Older windows, but they were fine. There wasn't, but the inspector noted that they were older windows. So these people end up sending an inspection response with not joking, 76 items on the inspection response, including replacing every single window, even though the inspection said there isn't anything wrong with these windows, but they are an older type of window, single pane window. And so the sellers, of course, no way, I'm not doing all of these things, I'll do some of them, the things that are appropriate, that make sense. So then she sends it back to them, and they said, no way, they want it out of the contract. Well, as the purchase agreement reads, and because these weren't major defects that they were fighting over, she said, okay, well, I'm keeping, they decided we're keeping your earnest money. So they kept the earnest money. And then once she had moved into her new home in downtown Indianapolis, sometime later, she comes back from vacation and is served because these buyers, or former buyers, are suing her for the amount of the earnest money because they want their $500 back. So they go to court, and the judge awarded those buyers the earnest money back. She had to pay it back to them because the judge said, well, you still sold the house. Even though she didn't sell it for as much as they had offered or the higher offer, like in the multiple offer situation, was made for. But he said, well, you eventually sold it, so they should get their earnest money back.
That's a joke.
So it's just mind-blowing. We went through that emotional situation, that's why she chose that offer, but then there's the cautionary tale, I guess, that you take away from it as the listing agent. You've got multiple offers and somebody's making an offer sight unseen, especially on an older property, it might not be the best one
Hey, Danielle, it
to
just
take.
surprises me that it was sight unseen. Don't you rush your buyers out to look at the house? I always do, except my investors, because they all live in different states, but, even for them, I sent, multiple pictures to them.
I think
Hey, this
maybe
is what
they
you're
just
buying.
felt comfortable because they lived a couple doors down. And
But they had a different agent, right?
Oh, yes, yeah. It was not a,
It just seems weird to me, especially with an older home.
That's definitely a good example of if you are a listing agent, you're accepting an offer, that's something to consider if you've got somebody writing an offer sight unseen.
That just happened to me, a few weeks ago when I asked that agent, please get your buyer inside.
Yeah.
I don't feel good having my seller accept this
Absolutely.
offer without knowing that they put eyeballs on it.
I love it. Jake,
Yeah, it's just the power of telling a story, because quite frankly, I listed a ranch in Fishers when I sent out to the group and had 14 showings on it first day basically, leading into the next day. So 14 altogether. I was in Akron, Ohio when all this was going on. And we got 3 offers on it immediately. And all list price offers, very similar in nature. But the one offer we took, and she sent the offer, the pre-approval letter, and a letter. It's the letter. It's always that letter that sometimes gets people. And I'm dealing with someone from Slovenia who is an immigrant, who's my seller. We had people from Venezuela who were immigrants, who've been looking for the past 120 days for a house, had put in offers, haven't gotten anywhere on it. They wrote their story to my seller, who is an immigrant, and correlated the stories. The buyers been looking forever. They're pre-approved. Can't find. They're talking about their hard way of life in the story and how hard it's been to find and get citizenship and and all of that. And the daughter's got cerebral palsy on top of it.
Oh.
So this whole story about how your home would be so perfect for our family, and just a relatable thing, and my seller just caught it right away and accepted that immediately over everything else.
It's the hard.
So it's the story, and I don't, who knows if half the stories out there are true to get some of these homes, right? That they're writing letters for, but you go with what.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean.
And I think that's the thing, and that's where I'm gonna wrap this up here for y'all. And I really, really appreciate the stories. By the way, the craziest story, I'm giving the $100 to Keith, because that's ridiculous. So well done for doing your job there, man. But I think, Jay, you hit on something, and Daniel, you just hit on something as well. And that's kind of where I want to wrap up with this. Is it does not have to be your story. And that's why I wanted to share these stories with the group. Is if you're a newer agent, you're like, I don't have these stories yet. Who cares? You just heard some amazing stories about how great real estate agents solve problems, and how you can use that story, use a third-party story to share with your clients when you find yourself in a similar situation. I promise you will if you do this long enough and you do enough transactions. Crazy's going to happen. It just does. And one of the biggest takeaways, going back to something I said in the beginning, is this is a skill set. This is something that you can learn to do if you truly just take the time to do it. So I've got up here, write this down if you want to, but if you take the time to map out the story for all these situations, okay, and share a third-party example with somebody when the opportunity presents itself, when you're going through a challenge, or you're working with somebody on the phone and you need to share a story about how you've helped somebody else sell their house, move into a new house. In a crazy real estate market like this, the story hits on the emotion. It makes your pitch relatable, because you're just talking to them as a friend. And so any story needs to have a time. When did the story happen? 2 months ago, last summer, 3 years ago, I don't care what that time is, but the story has to happen at a specific time. So you have to acknowledge that. Okay, it has to have a place. Where did this happen? Okay, I was working with this client in Fishers 3 months ago. There you go. You've got a time and a place. It's got to have a character. Okay, oftentimes our characters are going to be a past client. It's going to be somebody you worked with. Or hell, I was just talking to an agent in my office that went through a very similar situation to this, and here's how they handled it. So the character can be anybody, but it's generally going to be a client in our case here. What challenge presented itself? Okay, what objective did you have? Obviously, the objective oftentimes for us is just getting the deal to closing. Okay, but map out the series of events. And so we've been working on this for the last 3 weeks in the Monday and Thursday class. How long does it take? Okay, so Luke crushed a story yesterday about how he's helped somebody move out of a house, buy their other house. He crushed every objection I threw at him, but it's taken you 3 weeks to really just nail that, right? How much time have you practiced doing that? How many times have you fumbled through it on the phone before it finally bam, I got this?
Yeah, I was gonna say a little bit on the phone, a little bit just rehearsing. Just trying to get the verbiage down and stuff.
But now, when he's working with somebody that has a house to sell, and they're thinking they're going to move forward with a contingent offer in this market, rather than laughing at them and telling them why that won't work, now Luke's got a story that he can share about how he helped somebody else in the exact same situation, and how he helped mitigate the risk of buying your next house first. Okay, he crushed it, but it's taken time. And so all this stuff we're talking about today, you're not just gonna remember this stuff off the cuff. Write it down, practice doing it, and then you can have a plan when the opportunity presents itself. So you can work through a solution like Stephen did and manage a $35,000 appraisal difference by meeting with them face to face, walking them through the series of events, reminding them how much work they've done to get this house, how much they love this house, what it was gonna mean to them. So that way they're re-engaged with us. And it was huge, huge. Or like what Keith did in doing his homework up front, checking the flood map so a buyer knows, guess what, this guy does go above and beyond. He's not just about the paycheck, because here's how he saved this other client money. So these are all great examples. So I really, really appreciate everybody's time today. These are huge examples that we can all share moving forward now to better improve our business, to more quickly build a relationship. At the end of the day, we make more money doing it. We have happy customers that give us referrals. That's what this business is about. Anybody else have anything you want to share? Any questions about what this looks like? If you want, please come in on